There's a formula to it. A very simple formula.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
From the prime time, bitch!
Don't you blame the movies? Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
What's up, everybody? This is a new podcast, all dedicated to horror. I am Scott, and I am with
Sean.
And we are going to talk about some horror. You might know him from his channel, Sean Blumenshine, where he talks Kiss and horror movies, two of my favorite things. And on the off chance you know me from my podcast, Partial Artist, we have came together and we're going to start our own podcast. It's just horror movies. And I think it's going to be a good time. We don't have a name. We don't really have anything yet, honestly. We're kind of just going for it first episode to see what happens, but should be good, I think.
Yeah, should be fun.
I'm hoping so. This first episode, we're just going to touch on what got us into horror movies, our favorite horror movies, what we like, dislikes, all that good stuff, so that we know who you're listening to whenever we go deeper down the rabbit hole, because there's a good chance we have a lot of similarities and a lot of differences on our horror movies, I'd be willing to bet, as time goes on. So, Sean, would you like to start off by telling people, I guess, what kind of horror you like, what got you into it, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah. What got me into horror, I guess it just sort of starts with Wes Craven. Just like at a really young age when they were coming out, I saw the Scream movies, probably at too young of an age, but sure, I turned out fine. And that was most of the horror I was exposed to as like a young kid. And then when I was about 8, I was like channel surfing and happened to see on the TV guide something called Wes Craven's New Nightmare and recognized his name from the Scream movies. And so I watched it and loved it. And then obviously that got me into Freddy, and then Freddy versus Jason introduced me to that character, the latter character. And so I just started watching all of those movies, trying to find them on TV or, DVDs wherever I could. And, it's just sort of a rabbit hole from there. I started watching the AMC marathon they do every year, which is how I discovered Halloween and, Michael Myers. And then, at that point, just sort of just watching everything anytime something was on TV, or just finding DVDs anywhere. Completely lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a really interesting genre that you can do a lot with, in terms of like story and themes, because you don't have to worry about sort of the big budget nature of a lot of movies, where because like a big like Avengers movie costs so much that it has to appeal to someone in Kansas as much as someone in China. And so those kind of movies have to be really, really broad. Whereas a lot of horror movies, because they're cheaper, they can be a little more niche and a little more focused and get kind of heavier into stuff.
That's a good point. I've never thought about how broad a major movie has to actually be to captivate an entire world of people. That's a good point.
Yeah.
For me, I guess to carry off on the question, for me, in the same year, I don't know which one came first, but in the same year, I watched The Exorcist, Freddy versus Jason, and The Omen, which I was probably, it was 2000. Yeah, I was 7, which is, again, too young of an age to see all 3 of those movies, but I definitely did. And same thing. It shaped. I'm a pretty normal guy. I'm not crazy, but I remember that kind of set the standard, because for me, and to this day, The Exorcist is still like, that's the pinnacle of like scary movies for me. Even though as an adult now it doesn't, but there's still scenes in that where you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe they did that. So after seeing that, it kind of just manifested and grew from there, because I didn't know why I liked that feeling, but I just liked it. Sitting in my room, terrified, wanting to turn the lights on, wanting to see. And no matter how much it scared me, every chance I got, I'd put on a new horror movie, no matter what it was. Like the first Freddy I saw was uh oh God. Not Freddy, the one right before Freddy's dead. Is that Dream Child? Yeah.
Yeah.
First one I ever saw was Dream Child. So like that was minus Freddy versus Jason. So I was
Right.
watching anything I could at that point. And
Dream Child was an early one for me too. I don't think that's the first one I saw. Obviously, it was Nightmare, but that's an early one. It was on cable a lot.
yeah, that's where I
Back
saw
then.
it was on cable. Yeah.
It was on a lot. That and two.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 was the very last one I saw, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
That was the furthest back I went. I don't know if it's because I just heard stuff about it or I just never got around to it.
So you just kind of avoided it?
Yeah, it wasn't like I guess a conscious thing, but I just never really put it
Sure.
on. And then I bought a pack of the movies. I was like, I should probably give this one a chance. I've seen all the other
Yeah.
ones. Kind of like you with the AMC thing. I was into Bravo used to do this thing. They did it 1 year on Halloween, and it was the top 100 scary movie moments. And
Oh.
it came out when I was like 8 or 9. And I remember watching that, and it was just counting down one scary movie at a time, and did like little commentary with these comedians and directors and stuff. It was pretty good. Like they have comedians, then they'd have the actors, then they'd have like a director, and they'd all talk about like how it affected them when they saw it and stuff. It was a really cool show. And
That's cool.
yeah, that just led down that just furthered it because it showed me, oh my God, there's 100 other movies like this stuff. And then before I knew it, I was just indulged in it. There's nothing I could do. I was obsessed. I'd watch any horror movie I could find, and since then it's just carried through.
Yeah.
So would you say that slashers are your favorite genre? I'm guessing.
I think just because I grew up with it, like that was the main thing I watched, I would just kind of by default, yeah. Even though I do have lots of problems with the genre, and obviously not every movie is great. I think there is just a nostalgia to it because I grew up watching the Freddy, Jason, and Michael movies. So yeah, I guess slashers, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think about subgenres as much. Like obviously I'm aware of them, but I kind of just look at it all as horror. I look at music a lot of the same way. Like once it starts getting into like really niche subgenres, I kind of just tune out. Like it's rock or it's something else.
Yeah,
That's just kind of how my brain works.
that's fair. I used to, especially back in high school, I'd go to all these metal shows and stuff, and you would like mislabel a metal band, and they would get so mad. They'd be like, "Oh, it's actually melodic deathcore." You're like, dude, I don't care, bro. Call it whatever you want. And yeah, I guess if we're breaking it with genres, it's weird. I like the like spirituality side, like demon side, but
Yeah.
they, in a weird way, they all kind of rip off each other into like the same. I guess it's the same with any genre, but like they never do it as good as I want it to be the first time I saw it. Like it never does the same effect. Granted, I was 7, but like I always like those. I like cults. I find cults really creepy. So if I find like a cult movie, I'm done. They mess me up.
I feel like cults can be creepy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no,
you.
no, you're good.
Cults can be creepy, but that's one of those that I think can also dip into silly real quick.
I could see it. For me, I think the weirder it gets, the creepier it gets. Like that's what where it starts getting silly. For me, I'm like, that's even more terrifying because I don't know. Cults could like when you look at real life cults, you're like, oh shit, people do
Yeah.
get that crazy. Like it sounds insane and I'm laughing at it, but people could actually do that. Like that's what gets me.
Yeah, like it's not a horror movie, but did you see that sort of mini series they did on Waco and that cult?
I've heard it. I've heard it's really good. I've been there before. That the Branch Davidians, all that stuff.
Mhm.
That's still a real place. That's still like a functioning place. Like my brother-in-law drove up there like 2 years ago because he was working in town there, and he's like, "Dude, I want to check it out." You know, you'd be thinking it's like some closed off thing or something.
Yeah.
No, if you go up, it's still functioning, and they have a sign that like in front, like telling you that this is still going. If you go on the property, it's functioning property. It's not like a cult per se.
Sure.
But one of, I guess, the members or former members or something like took it over and now runs it like an organization or like, I guess you wouldn't call it a church. I don't know what you'd call it, but Yeah, it's still like a thing, which blew my mind when I found that out.
Yeah, it was a really intense kind of thing, but I suppose it falls more into like thriller than horror. I've never really seen like a horror movie cult that sort of had the same effect on me.
I liked so the Wicker Man always got me.
Of course, Wicker Man. Yeah, that's the one I was forgetting. No, that one's good. Yeah.
Yeah, because this dude's just on an island and everyone's acting weird, and you're like,
Yeah.
and you're like wanting him to leave, but he can't.
Yeah.
Like that. That stuff weirds me out. The what's not Midsommar? I liked that one.
I also loved that one. I'm just contradicting myself. It turns out I do like these movies. No, yeah, Midsummer was great.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I love. I think that's Ari Aster who makes those.
Yeah.
And, dude, I love his style. There's something about his style that's amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm still upset that it got like no recognition that you're doing like the awards season, which I know horror never does, and I shouldn't really care because it doesn't matter, but it still kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I feel the same with when Kiss would never get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'd be like, LL Cool J and ABBA are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but we can't get Kiss. So like one part of me, I'm like, it's a joke, but the other part of me is like, put them in there. That's how I feel about the awards.
You want to feel validated for the things you like, and when people sort of tell you that it sucks or that it's not worth it, it's hard not to get your feelings hurt by that.
I think that A24, whatever the company is that does like Midsommar and all this, I think they're the pinnacle of horror right now, like in art in this time period. I think they're like the stuff they keep coming out with is just fantastic.
Well, sure, them, and of course, Blumhouse. Like, not that everything they do is good, but the fact that they can so regularly make as much as they do, make as many hits as they do, and the movies that do work. Like I've always been really impressed with what Blumhouse has been doing, because they like started from nothing. Like they were the Paranormal Activity people, which was purely word of mouth and like a good marketing campaign. That movie was made for $2.
Yeah, that movie and Blair Witch, I feel like makes anyone feel like I could make a movie, because like they make it so cheap and easy, and you're like, the keeping it word of mouth, like quiet, like to not let people know it's real or whatever, I don't feel like you could do it at this point point in time. Like that style of movie is just wrapped.
It was very much of its time, and that's okay. And no one's really trying to replicate it, which is good. We kind of just sort of letting it be what it was. Well, I guess they did do a new Blair Witch, but I didn't bother seeing that.
I didn't either. It looked like I didn't check it out. I think they made it like an actual directed movie, not like a handheld. I don't know.
They did that with Blair Witch 2 as well.
Yeah, the Book of Secrets or whatever it was.
Book of Shadows.
Book of Shadows, yeah.
That sounds more right. I never saw that one.
I think it's Book of Shadows. I saw it a long time ago. Clearly, it didn't stick with me very much.
The guy that directed that, the next project he got was the Metallica documentary, Some Kind of Monster. I always just thought that was a fun career trajectory.
That is an odd turn of movies. Yeah, I'm just going to go from directing the second Blair Witch movie. Someone saw it and was like, I need him to direct my Metallica documentary. They're really good with that. That's funny.
Well, they weren't going to hire him to direct an actual movie after Blair Witch 2.
I can't even. It might be better than I think it is. I don't know. I haven't seen it in so long. I'm trying to think of other questions so people can get to know us better. I think I remember your answer from when you were on my podcast. What is your unpopular horror opinions, where people are going to hear it and go, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, that's really easy to get into with like the big series, because there are specific movies that I like and don't like in like the big horror series that are not popular opinions. I really like Rob Zombie's second Halloween, the director's cut, just because it's so just like weird and out there. And I'd be lying if I said I like understood it or like got what was happening, but I just think it's so interesting. And to be kind of frank, most of that series is really, really bad. or I suppose to be a little kinder, maybe just like mediocre. And
Well,
so,
oh,
sorry.
sorry. Once they hit squeaky shoes and what was that, Halloween 5, anytime the cops would walk, they would do the
Yeah.
horn. I think that's the low.
Yeah.
It's hard to not hit that low again.
And we talked about that on your podcast, and I remembered afterwards the reason that's an homage to Last House on the Left.
Oh.
And the dumb cops that are in that movie, which why would you homage the worst part of that movie? But
yeah,
that's why they did that.
especially that many years later. Like, because
it's really random.
Okay, I'm glad you gave me an answer because I never knew. I was like, why is that here? Okay.
Yeah, but for me, Halloween 6 is the low point. Thorn and
that's
all
Paul
of
Rudd,
that.
Right?
Yes, Paul Rudd is Tommy Doyle.
So weird to think.
But other unpopular opinions, I'm not as hard on generally I'm not as hard on remakes as a lot of people are. I think people tend to kind of dismiss them just because they're remakes and we're supposed to not like them. But I thought the Friday the 13th reboot was a solid Friday the 13th movie. I don't really understand how you could like that series and then not like that movie. Like I was a little confused by that. I liked the Elm Street remake. Not a big fan of Dream Warriors. That's probably my most controversial.
Ooh,
Said I just don't like Dream Warriors.
that is controversial. Could you rank your Freddy's? Like your
right now,
your nightmare
just off the
movies?
top of my head, yeah.
Start with worst to best.
Okay. Dream Master is worst. Then I'd say Child.
Damn, you're like one of maybe 5 people who's also myself who doesn't have Freddy's Dead as like the worst.
I don't think it's the worst one. I think Dream Master and Child are much, much worse.
I agree.
Then I'd go Dream Warriors.
That was wild. That's a twist.
yeah. I don't like that movie.
The only one in history who's ever put Dream Warriors below Freddy's Dead.
So what would be next? I'd probably go Freddy's Dead, then Freddy versus Jason, then 2, then the remake, then the original, then New Nightmare.
Wow, that remake was a lot higher than I thought.
I really liked that remake.
If I had to list them, the remake is, I don't know if I could put it, when you think about Dream Child and Dream Warrior, it's just so hard to put anything below that. I'd have to put the remake last. I can't stand the voice. The voice killed me. Dream Child's the one where they start running through the painting, right? Where they're doing like the up sound stairs and sideways stairs and all that stuff. Yeah, okay, that one next. I run them all together. I can't keep them straight. So that one.
I think that was a music video that they saw. Like somebody had done like a music video that was that, and they must have thought it was cool.
Probably at that point in time, probably. So yeah, that Dream Master. The second one, New Nightmare, Dream Warriors, the original Freddy versus Jason. I think I got all of them.
I think you missed New Nightmare, unless I zoned out when you said it.
I thought, okay, New Nightmare would be after 2. So it would go like the Dream Child, Dream Master, whatever, then 2, then New Nightmare would be.
Okay.
Yeah, so my number 1 would be Freddy versus Jason, just because of nostalgia purposes.
Sure.
Yeah, that was.
It's interesting, like nostalgia, like what sticks with you and what doesn't. Because like I'm also really nostalgic for Freddy versus Jason. You know, I was a kid at that time, and that was like the biggest movie ever. Like I felt like everybody at school was talking about it.
Yeah.
But that's a movie that the older I got, the less I liked it. Whereas there are other movies from my childhood that like Scream 3, where like I can sort of look at it and be like, yeah, this is a mess, but like I still love it.
That's fair.
It's just interesting, like in like the way my brain works. Like why can't nostalgia pull me through Freddy versus Jason, but it can other movies?
I'm trying to think of movies that lost nostalgia. The Omen. That's one that was one of the first ones I ever saw. But now, like, I have no real desire to like put that movie on.
The original?
Either or.
That's the same movie.
Yeah, see, it's literally the exact same movie. It's for people who don't like remakes that change shit, go watch the Omen remake because it's the original movie with just new people.
I hate that. Like shot for shot remakes are just obnoxious.
It's insanely shot for shot. Like
Yeah.
I've never played them side by side, but I have a feeling if you did, it would be pretty close.
Yeah.
The only thing, and you want to talk about things sticking with you, that scene where the nurse or nanny, whoever, jumps out the window, she's like, "It's all for you, Damien," and hangs herself. Something about seeing people jump and like off things or hang themselves gives me the chills so bad to this day as an adult. Like the sight of someone hanging like messes me up, and I think it's because of that movie, honestly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, the Omen one I lost nostalgia with. I don't know. I've never thought about that before. I will say that I never lost any love for The Strangers after seeing the second Strangers because I hated that movie. I still love the original, but I hated, was it like
Pray at
Night?
Night?
Yeah.
I never saw it.
Oh my God. I was so, it's one of those, you have to go into it with the right mindset. If you look at it as a sequel, you're going to hate it. You just have to look at it like a new separate movie, essentially. Because they wanted to do like big homages to like, or like a style of like 80s slashers where the killer doesn't die, he keeps coming back. It's like a Jason thing where you can't get rid of him. There was a part where the killer's chasing him. They've already stabbed him and whatever they're doing to him. He's crashed his truck. He's got glass through his stomach. His truck sets on fire. And then he's driving after him, gets out, grabs him. I'm like, no. The whole thing about the original Strangers that was cool was that they were normal people fucking with people for no reason. I don't need him to be a superhero.
Yeah. Like even just hearing you describe that, I was like, that doesn't even
doesn't
sound
fit.
like The Strangers. My guess is what happened in that situation, based on absolutely nothing, is that they probably had some kind of script that was just like some new like horror thing. And then they were like, oh, let's call it The Stranger so we can like sell it.
Probably so. I know the director said she wanted to go for like a nostalgia 80s thing. And I was like, that's not the franchise or the time to do it, in my opinion. Not with that movie. Because the whole mystique of that movie was that they were just three people who went and killed random people just because they wanted to.
Yeah, that was a really cool movie. I don't think we ever really needed a sequel to The Strangers, which is why I never saw it.
I always think this a lot about movies or certain things, and I know that there's so much money involved it'll never happen. But when I see like an amazing movie that's like fantastic, like The Strangers ended perfectly, I would give anything for it to just stand alone. Like the director, the writer, they're all like, I'm done. That's it. I'm not doing another one forever. That's a wrap. But then like imagine if they would have just stuck with one Jaws, you know? That would have been awesome. But they're like, no, we got to make Jaws 3D and stuff and ruin everything.
I actually kind of like Jaws 2.
Jaws 2, I mean, it's kind of like the Halloween effect. Like Halloween, Rob Zombie's second Halloween, when you compare it to the other shit that came with it, yeah, it's pretty good.
Fair enough. I guess, yeah, compared to 3 and 4, it's just kind of like, oh, this one's fine.
Yeah,
this one can stay. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun.
I like Rob Zombie's Halloweens, but I feel like it also had to do with my age range. Like when I saw them, I was like a early teenager, whatever it is, whenever they came out. And so they always like, oh shit, this is badass. Whereas if you're an adult who's seen all the other ones, you're like, it's kind of, I don't like the language at the beginning and all that stuff, which I get people don't like it. But for me, I'm like, that's Rob Zombie's style. I like it.
I'm not a huge fan of his dialogue writing. Like every time I see one of his movies, I wish he would get like a writer who could write dialogue, especially because everybody talks the same way. Like everybody has the exact same voice, unless he manages to get like a really good actor, like a Malcolm McDowell or a Brad Dourif, who can kind of play with it and make it their own. And otherwise, everybody just sort of talks the same, and it's really obnoxious.
Oh, I definitely see why people don't like it.
Yeah, he did. Did you see his movie, The Lords of Salem?
If I remember correctly, I probably got through half of it. If I'm thinking of the same one,
It's really bad.
That's the one with his wife, and she lives like in an apartment or something, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I got through like half that movie.
His wife's in all of them.
Well, she's like
so
the
that
lead
initial didn't
lead.
help. Yeah, that was the first one where she was the lead, which is a big part of why that movie doesn't work. I'm so sorry if that being like played through the audio. I don't know what that was.
I couldn't hear it.
Oh, well then I just interrupted for no reason. The point I was going to make is that he did a novelization of that movie before the movie came out. Like he got with an author and they turned it into a book. And the book was really, really good. And it got me like really excited for that movie. And so I was so disappointed when it kind of turned out the way that it did.
He came out with that movie, and then I remember I always see 31. I've never watched it.
I did not enjoy 31. It's a great concept. Like it's a really, really cool idea for a movie, but just for me, what the problem I run into, the same problem with all of his films, is that I just cannot stand any of the people on screen. The dialogue's really bad. They're kind of just idiots who, like, there's one scene where they're like fighting the bad guys, and like it's a group of people trapped in like a horror maze, and they have to survive like 31 hours, I think, which is why it's called that. And so while different serial killers come and try to murder them, and so like one character's like fighting one of the killers, and Sherry Moon Zombie's character and a couple of other characters are kind of just standing there, just like watching. And it's like his back is turned to you. You could just like grab something and hit him.
Yeah.
It's like a really long scene. And I mean, it's sweet that he puts his wife in all his movies. Like, I'm not criticizing him for doing that, but she's not my favorite actor in the world. And so with every movie, she gets a bigger part, and that kind of hurts the movie, as opposed to like his Halloweens, where like in the first one, she dies halfway through. And then the second one, she's just this kind of weird background ghost hallucination thing that you can kind of ignore because she's just kind of in the background. But now she's just the lead in everything.
Now, do you think those quirky, I guess the typical Rob Zombie characters, if you want to say that, would be this? Did you like those in House of Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects? Like, did you like them in their place, or you didn't like those either?
I did not like House of a Thousand Corpses. Devil's Rejects I thought was quite a bit better, but it's still not a movie that I would go back to.
Makes sense.
And I'm just, Zombie's influences, he wears them on his sleeve, that grindhouse style. I'm just not into a lot of that either. To bring it back to, unpopular opinions, not the biggest Texas Chainsaw guy.
What?
I respect what it's doing and like how it's doing it, but that doesn't mean that I can sit down and enjoy watching that movie. Like I like its gritty style. I like that it's presented like a documentary, and there is something very visceral and intense to all of that. Honestly, it's really just the wheelchair guy.
He's annoying, huh?
that guy really rubs me the wrong way.
Dude, I feel that when he finally got his in the movie, I was like, yes, dude.
Instantly a much better movie.
He was so annoying. Sally, why don't you take me? Sally, why just bitching the whole time? It's like, dude, I didn't want to take you on the damn trip. Like, you're just sitting here bitching the whole time. I get
and
that.
He's like, he survives so long too.
He does.
He's like the last one to die.
I wonder if they did that on purpose. They're like, let's make this dude annoying, and we're gonna put him through 3/4 of the movie, so that way when he finally gets it, you're like, yes, there he goes.
And I get that. I don't know if that's always super effective, because the Friday the 13th reboot did that too, where they had that really annoying kind of preppy guy that was just a massive douche the entire movie, and it's just really annoying, and you're stuck with him for an hour. And yeah, he finally dies, and that's satisfying, but I'm never quite sure if it's worth it.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's got to be touch and go. It can't be every movie like that, but every now and then you can kind of keep that annoying person along. I think you've never seen the second Texas Chainsaw, have you?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen that one, and I haven't seen the beginning, and I haven't seen the most recent one they did. Like,
Wait, no, the beginning's not the Jessica Biel one. That's the one
no,
that came
that's the
after
2003
Jessica Biel.
remake. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
prequel
Okay.
to the remake because they made a remake and then went, let's make a prequel to the remake.
I was about to say, dude, you have to see the Jessica Biel one because I love that one.
I do really like that movie.
I remember the first time it's probably the first movie trailer I can remember seeing. Again, it's crazy how horror just sticks with you. It was before some movie because we bought them on DVD back then, which is I love DVDs. I have like a whole room of DVDs. I feel that's you talk about nostalgia things. Like I see a DVD on sale, I'm like, oh damn, I gotta buy that. And I remember we had a DVD and it was the preview before it, and it starts out with just a black screen, and you kind of hear like police phone call talking, whatever, that beginning of that movie. And then you just hear the chainsaw start up, and then like it was just like revving, and you hear the screaming, and then it just said coming soon or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was the coolest build up to a movie I'd ever seen. Just black screen, all this dialogue, chainsaw screaming, our movie's coming. It's like, damn, that's how you do it.
Platinum Dunes had a really bad track record of setting themselves up for success and then immediately shooting themselves in the foot. And I've always just been baffled by how they handled it because they got all of these properties and all of these titles, and then they would do these remakes and then just completely flounder with it. And I never understood what was going on. You know, like Texas Chainsaw, they made that remake. It was really good. It was really popular. It made a lot of money. And so they were like, okay, let's make a prequel. And it wasn't very good because prequels generally aren't. Prequels are the worst. And so that kind of floundered. They never made another Elm Street. They never did another Friday. It was like, well, why did you reboot then if you're just going to do one and then just kind of give up?
Yeah, that's fair. I think, keeping on Texas Chainsaw, I think for an episode, you need to watch the second one and we need to talk about it. But you can't don't go into the second one thinking Texas Chainsaw horror. Just go into it as a movie, just a standalone movie, and see what you think.
Having seen Next Generation,
oh,
they're all fine.
God, dude. That was the first Texas Chainsaw I ever saw in my life.
That was a mistake.
The Next Generation is hands down, that's the first one I ever saw. And even as a child, I was like 8 or whatever watching it. And I, even then, not understanding really horror at that point, went, this is awful. This is a horrible movie. I'm a child. Like, I don't even have fully capable thoughts yet. And halfway through, I'm like, why does Matthew McConaughey have weird legs? Why is this acting so terrible? Why is Leatherface like a woman? I'm very confused.
And then the Illuminati shows up. That movie's wild.
I unfortunately have that on DVD somewhere.
do not.
I feel like there might have been 10 of those produced, so it might be rare. I don't know. That movie.
Did that make it to theaters, or do you think that was a direct-to-video one?
That I know I watched a thing on it. I think they put it out. They had a different title. It wasn't The Next Generation at first. It was they had a different title. And then I think they put it out and it did so poorly they pulled it the first weekend, and then they re-released it to DVD with a different title. But originally it had an original title to it. Next Generation was what they put on it when they finally put it out, like 2 DVD.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense.
From what I heard, Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey's management did everything in their power to get their names scrubbed from that film.
Yeah. I heard that about McConaughey because that was one of the first things he did, but he did something else, like whatever broke him and like
Dazed
made
and Confused was like a year before. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had done that. And so he was blowing up really big. And yeah, they tried desperately to stop that movie, which fair.
It's what sucks about it is that movie's horrible, but his performance in that movie, he is like, He's pretty good in that movie, honestly, for being a crazy dude.
He is the only watchable thing about it.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, 2 is going to be, I'm curious to see, because people either love it or they hate it. There's like no middle ground. It's one of those kind of movies.
Sure.
And it's because they took such a twist from the original, but didn't tell anybody they were going to do that. So they kind of just, people went and watched, like, oh, it's been 15 years since the Texas Chainsaw. And then it comes on. They're like, what in the hell is this movie? Like,
It was made 15 years after?
I believe it was 15 because the original came out in 73. Yeah. And the remake came out in 87 or 88, somewhere in there. 86, maybe. Somewhere in that range. It had been a long time.
I guess 3 and 4 were both the 90s, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, so Toby did all Poltergeist and all that stuff before he went back to making a Chainsaw remake. And it's more of like, he saw the original as a dark comedy, is what his own words. And people were like, yeah, definitely not a comedy, sir, but all right. So now that he had all this money and clout and fame, when he went to make the second one, he was like, I'm going to make it how I want to make it. I'm going to put my dark comedy twist on it. So it is like a dark comedy when you see the second one.
Okay.
And I'm curious to hear, I would love to talk about it whenever you see it and see what you think on it.
Yeah, it should definitely, Texas Chainsaw 2 should definitely be an episode.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one.
You know, just speaking of Texas Chainsaws, the next generation floundering in its first weekend, do you remember when Texas Chainsaw 3D came out?
I don't.
It had a very good first day, like at the box office. Like its first day was pretty good. And so I think it was Lionsgate. They really wanted it to be their new Saw. And so they announced like 6 or 7 sequels like that day, like day of release. They were like, we're going to do 7 of these. And then day 2, had like a huge drop. And then day 3, it dropped even lower. Like it went from like the #1 movie at the box office to definitely not #1 of like over the course of a weekend. Because I'm guessing just all the idiots like me went like opening day and then went, oh, that's bad. And then no one else ever saw it ever.
I saw some of it when it was on Netflix or Hulu, whatever it was. And I've never finished it. I've never cared to.
It's quite bad. Though I always was hoping for the sequel Heatherface, because I always just enjoyed that joke.
That'd have been pretty cool. The genuine question, do you think, because I think I can outrun a fucking grown man carrying a chainsaw through the woods. Genuinely. I don't think you're catching me. I'm already pretty quick, and you put a chainsaw in your hands, I'm going to outrun you. Also, I'm afraid I'm going to die. Adrenaline, dude, I don't see how they can't outrun a dude with a chainsaw, to be honest.
Oh my God, but I don't know if you saw this part. My favorite part of that movie, Texas Chainsaw 3Ds, they're in a car. They could very easily get away. They're driving away. The Leatherface cannot possibly catch them. There's a gate. The main girl is like, stop the car so I can open the gate. And the guy's like, no, I'm just going to drive through it. And that goes about as well as you think it's going to go. And that dude gets them all killed. Well, except the main girl, because she's like Leatherface's cousin or whatever.
Yeah, I unfortunately do not remember that part of that film.
It's just one of those things that's just like one of like the dumbest horror moments of like, just get out and open the gate, moron.
Yeah, you're already so far ahead. Like, they can't catch
just
you.
Open the damn gate. You're not going to make it through.
I just, every time I see it, I'm like, this is cool and all. But when I see it, and I get that he's a very large man and a very physical man, but you can't keep up cardio that long. Like, he runs so far. I'm like,
and with like Michael and Jason, there's a suspension of disbelief because you know there's a supernatural element to it. They're not quite human.
Yeah, exactly.
Leatherface is just a big dude in the with a chainsaw.
Yeah, it's like, and he's lit, and like, it's not like he's got an amazing workout routine or diet.
No,
like, he eats humans and does nothing all day, so he can just sprint with the best of them and keep up. Like, nah, there's no way. Maybe
especially in like the remake when it's like Jessica Biel in like just peak human condition shape.
Yeah, I always hated that part. maybe I'm just confusing the part because I haven't seen it in a while. But I remember there's a part where she's sitting in the car and like he was stabbing through and the dude got out, whatever. And it's whenever he's wearing like her boyfriend's face, and she's sitting in the car staring at him for so long, watching it happen. I'm like, get moving! What are you doing? Like you're just watching all this unfold. Like I'm sorry, your boyfriend's dead, but you gotta run now.
I mean, shock is a thing. Like people go into shock and just like can't move. That's I think how I would kind of justify that because like you saw just some dude wearing like your boyfriend's face. Like logic is going to go out the window in that scenario.
But I mean, she sat in the car the whole time screaming while he was being killed. So if she would have just taken off at that point, she would have never even seen the fucking boyfriend face.
That's fair, yeah.
But that's true. Shock does treat people differently. That's why. What movie was it? I remember. I can't think of it. I always got in an argument with people about it because they said it wasn't. Oh my god. Hereditary. Whenever, do you see that movie?
You know, I haven't.
Oh, I don't want to give away shit. But there's a part in that movie where a character does a thing that's like so not what a normal person would do, and everyone gets so pissed. Like, why would you do that? But in my head, I'm like, dude, he's shocked. He's like a teenager. Like he doesn't know what's going on. And I've always argued that the whole time. You'd have to see it. I don't want to spoil it, but
I need to see it because I do like Ari Aster. You know, I loved Midsummer. I just never got around to watching that one for whatever reason. And you know, when movies like that get hyped up so much, but you don't see them right away or get in early enough, then it kind of becomes like,
I feel that.
Because you don't want to like go into it with that sort of like amaze me kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think it's good to kind of give distance when movies kind of blow up like that.
Yeah, I agree. Are you looking forward to the new Saw coming out? Are you a Saw guy?
I'm not a Saw guy. I'm certainly interested just because of the people involved.
Yeah.
Like there was such like a out of like Chris Rock and Sam Jackson in a Saw movie that was so out of like left field.
That is odd.
That I was like, oh, I'm interested, but no, I do not like Saw.
I didn't figure you don't see it, not liking the grindhouse stuff. I was like, you probably don't like the gore porn shit either.
Yeah, the gore doesn't bother me so much. It's really just how convoluted those things are. Like the first movie is fine. I can enjoy the first movie because it's this really sort of simple, effective thriller. And then I guess with the sequels, they decided to make it this like absolutely insane, intricate, detailed plot that doesn't make any sense, and it's just all over the place and just twist upon twist upon twist, and there are like 17 killers and I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, after the third one I was like, I'm out.
I stopped at 3-2. 3 was the one where I was like, no.
I've unfortunately seen them all because my wife was like, I'm gonna have a Saw marathon, and she watched them all, and I never had like sat through and watched them like day after day or whatever. And once we got to 4, I was sitting there and I was probably destroying these movies for her because I was pointing out every plot hole that didn't make sense logically. Like, that doesn't make sense because why would that happen? Then the 5th one, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Why would this happen if this already happened? None of this makes sense. They're just doing shit to do shit is what they're doing now.
They should never have killed Jigsaw.
Yeah, when they start doing that
was such a terrible decision, and it ruins everything after.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, he's got new killers. And then it'll show a flashback to he was working with them before he was dead. It's like, oh my God.
You just shouldn't have killed him, or you should have ended it there.
Yeah, been done.
Just never made another one and just have like a Saw trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah. Too much money though. They know it's going to sell.
I know. I wish we could just leave things alone.
That's
just leave it alone. It's not worth it.
I can't think. Can you think of a movie? I guess there's a lot of one-off horror movies, but can you think of a movie franchise that kept going where you're like, oh man, it stays good all the time? It's like
in horror?
Yeah.
Honestly, even out of horror, no.
Yeah, it's like
making movies is hard. Making a great movie is nearly impossible. Making 10 of them that are all going to be good, no. And Sorry, go
Oh
ahead.
no, I can think of movies that like they have a good one and the sequel's good. But once you start like going past that, there's very few things, and not in horror. Like I'm thinking like comedies and stuff. I can't think of horror movies that go past two where you're like, okay,
Well, and a lot of them were just designed to be one movie. And that's sort of the problem too. And that doesn't make it impossible when you look at a movie like Halloween, what really do you do to do
Yeah.
another one of those? And they've tried 1,000 different things to kind of make it work, and some are fine, some are okay, some are less than okay, but they haven't made a single thing that even comes close to what that original Halloween was.
yeah,
And so at a certain point, it's like, can we just stop? Like, can we just like not do this anymore? Like, I know it won't happen, but I do hope that after this David Gordon Green trilogy ends, that it's just done, that we can just leave it alone.
it won't be.
I know, because these movies are making an unbelievable amount of money,
Yeah,
but it'd be nice.
that would be very nice. I think it's weird if you were to look at it. I would love to be in an alternate universe where Halloween carried on as what John Carpenter wanted it to be, where each Halloween was a new film.
The anthology idea.
I'd be so curious to see where that would have ended up.
I think it'd be a lot more interesting. Not necessarily that every film would have been good, but it would have been a lot less generic slashers as many of the Halloween sequels were.
I feel like, especially at the time, because it was in theaters and stuff and a lot of word of mouth, I feel like it would have became a cult phenomenon. Like you'd be looking forward every year. You'd be like, dude, we gotta go because there's a new
Especially
one.
in the VHS era.
Yeah.
Like, I think if they had just been a little more patient with Season of the Witch and maybe marketed it a little differently, that could have worked. They absolutely would. And they did eventually. That movie does have a pretty strong fan base. So I think if they had been patient with sort of the VHS crowd, they probably could have continued doing that. Because it's kind of, the producers of the Halloween films kind of misrepresent the success of bringing Michael Myers back a little bit. Like Halloween 4 did well and was probably cheaper than Halloween 3, but it wasn't some huge, massive hit. 5 and 6 are the lowest grossing of the series. I think 5 is the lowest. And H2O was the one that really sort of brought it back and was like a big, big hit. But bringing Michael back really didn't affect that much. I mean, it did, but it wasn't like a night and day difference as I think it is sometimes portrayed.
That's fair. That's a good point. Yeah, it's not the when we think of Michael Myers as like a phenom now, but at the time it wasn't as just hard hitting as it seems coming off. Especially, I like 4, but
I do too.
Yeah, it's definitely not as hard hitting, especially when you're trying to come back after 1 and 2. You have that lull. I guess people would see as a lull with 3. And you're like, we're back.
Yeah.
And then you drop 4.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's fine.
It's good.
Like,
it's a
it's
good
nothing
movie.
wrong with it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know what else they could have done with it. I think is always kind of the thing. Like, that's the best a Halloween 4 could have been.
Yeah, you can't make it's how am I supposed to bring this dude back after putting a whole nother movie in between? He's already dead. Like,
our lead character doesn't want to come back because she isn't doing horror movies right now. And so we have to justify bringing Donald Pleasance back, even though he also blew up.
yeah.
I love that he just has scars and they're like, he just survived and there's no explanation. It's
Yeah.
like, no, he blew up.
He's dead. He's for sure dead. Like, there's no doubt. Yeah, dude, that's funny. Man.
Do you want to rank the Halloween movies since we did Elm Street?
Oh, that's for another episode. I'd have to go rewatch all of them to even like begin thinking about that. But this is our first episode. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It went pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
And yeah, we still don't have a name yet. We got to figure out a name. It's a bad start. I can't even be like, hey, No, we don't even have an email. We got a name. We don't got nothing. So hopefully by the time we get to our third episode, we have something. We need something creative.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying to think of something horror related. I was trying to think of something. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. It's probably just going to end up being Sean and Scott, the podcast. Because we just have no original name going. But man, I had a good
think
time.
Of something.
We'll get there. We'll figure it out. I'll go to just like a random name generator, horror movie generator, and see what we get. I'll just be the name of it. But I enjoyed doing this. I had a good time. And I think having segmented episodes will make it go a lot smoother too. Even more so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had fun. Hopefully y'all got to see who we are and understand who we are. And yeah. I'm sure at some point they'll even start picking sides of who's got the better horror opinions. Hear you. We'll create an army of people. But this was fun, man.
Yeah.
Can't wait to do the next one.
Yeah.
I don't know how to sign off. We don't have a name, so I can't sign off with anything. That's the end of the episode, everybody.
Subscribe. Do people subscribe?
Oh yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. Are we doing audio or video, or are we doing audio and video? How do you want to do? Because I don't do the video shit very much. I mean, I can upload the videos if you want to YouTube, or do you just want it to be audio, or what do you want this to? Because I'm fine with it being a video too. I don't care.
I think I'm good with just like an audio podcast, just like a traditional kind of podcast.
Dude, that would be perfect, because that's so much easier for me to do, because I can just get the audio from this and it's straight uploaded. I don't have to. The editing stuff is what made me not like doing. That's why I like your videos, because you do all the editing stuff. I'm like, I don't know how you do that, man. I would lose my mind.
It's very time consuming. And then the really bad part about it is because I want to use clips because it's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And you get copyright striked, and then I have to fucking re-edit it and re-export and re-upload. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah, that's how I felt. My old YouTube, I mean, I've got some videos on my YouTube, but I used to have like 100 something. I did a lot of videos, but I was so drained from editing and stuff that I remember I did one, I can't even remember what the video was, but I did one video and they struck it down where I couldn't do it. And I went, fuck it, I'm done. I'm not doing another video. That's a wrap. And I never, because I was just so drained.
There's one of the Kiss reviews, I think it's Creatures of the Night, where there's a clip, and I don't know who owns it, but there's someone who claims to own it, that I use like live footage, because that's what I would use a lot as clips while I was talking, and it got claimed, and I've disputed it and tried to fight it, but I just can't get it out. So whoever that company is makes all the money from that video, which is frustrating because it's one of my most viewed videos, but I don't want to re-upload it because then I would lose all the views that it has.
Yeah.
And it would sort of be this weird sort of out of order thing, just reviewing or uploading another version of that review a year later.
Yeah, I get that. Whenever I was uploading stuff, if it would get pulled or weird things would happen or I didn't like it, it was so hard. I couldn't re-upload it again because I'm like, it's not in order. It's not the way, it's not the progression. It's too odd of a jump. So I get that. Some other dude's reaping the rewards while your video sits there racking up.
It's I edited this, and sometimes I don't even think these people actually own it. I don't recognize the company. I'm like, what's if Kiss or Universal copyright claims because I used too much of a song or whatever, then I can sort of be like, yeah, that's fair. I probably did do too long of a clip. But even then, the amount of clips you're allowed to use are just insanely short. You go longer than 5 seconds and you're done.
Yeah.
And that's not quite legal, but I don't really have the power to fight it either. I can't just be like, oh, I'm going to sue the Weinsteins who don't own their stuff anymore. But, my Scream reviews those were really, really hard to get out because of clips getting claimed. And I can't just sue whoever bought all of their stuff, whoever owns the Scream movies now. So I just have to do stupid things like shrink down the footage to a fraction of the screen.
So you can check me out. I got a podcast, Partial Artist Podcast. Check it out. Apple, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. It'll be linked down below. I talk all things pop culture, horror movies. Basically, whatever I want to talk about, I end up doing. And you can also go to my YouTube and you can see some of my older videos I put up there years ago. And they're sitting up there if you want to check them out. But yeah, Partial Artist Podcast. Sean is back, it seems. He can plug his show.
Yeah, so mine is just Sean Blumenshine on YouTube. I do a mix of music and movie reviews. I've reviewed all of the Kiss albums. I've reviewed every Wes Craven movie. Right now, I've got a series called Guitar History, where I look at the various different touring guitars used by different members of Kiss. And I'm looking at a few rock biopics. I think The Runaways and Bohemian Rhapsody are the ones that are up now. And I'll also be reviewing The Dirt and Rocket Man. And pretty soon, I'll be starting a sort of history of horror series.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, the first one is going to be on silent films. And so that should start pretty soon. And then my Instagram is also just my name, Sean Blumenshine, where I mostly just post vinyl and other horror collectibles that I get.
I'm so glad to watch you go do like this silent film horror stuff forward, because I wanted to do that, but I don't have the patience to do the work and edit. So if you're willing to do it, by all means, I'll watch the hell out of it.
Thank you.
But yeah, dude, that's where you can check us out. That's our show. And next week will be, or next episode will be our top remakes and our worst remakes. So we'll see how that goes. But thank y'all for listening. We don't have a name yet, but we appreciate y'all. Y'all are the best.